Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you've ever been overlooked at work, ignored while someone else took credit, or punished for staying quiet, this story is for you. Make sure you stay until the end, because what begins as a simple question at a work dinner turns into something no one in that room was prepared for. The restaurant glowed with warm light, polished glasses catching reflections from the chandeliers above. Laughter floated through the air, but beneath it sat tension, quiet, unnoticed by most. This was the quarterly executive dinner, a night meant to celebrate wins, bonuses, and loyalty. The narrator explains that the woman at the center of this story arrived early, as she always did. She believed in preparation. She believed in earning her place quietly. She took the seat beside her direct manager, Greg, a man known for his tailored suits and practiced confidence. He smiled often, especially when senior leadership was watching. Across the table sat the CEO, Mitchell Warren, calm, charismatic, powerful. As glasses were raised and conversation flowed, Mitchell's attention shifted to her. He smiled politely and asked a question that landed like a crack of thunder. "So," he said, swirling his wine, "did your bonus help this quarter?" The table stilled. The woman froze. There had been no bonus, no email, no conversation. She turned slowly toward Greg. His smile faltered just for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice steady. "What bonus?" Silence spread across the table. Conversations died. Forks paused midair. Mitchell blinked. Greg shifted in his chair. In that moment, the narrator makes one thing clear. This dinner was no longer a celebration. It was the beginning of exposure. Greg reacted first, clearing his throat too quickly. He muttered about delays, accounting reviews, and process timing. His words stacked awkwardly, fragile excuses trying to hold their shape. The room leaned in. "Processing delays?" Mitchell repeated, clearly amused. The woman nodded politely, as if hearing the information for the first time. She didn't argue. She didn't accuse. She let the moment breathe. Around the table, senior managers exchanged subtle glances. Everyone could feel it. Something wasn't right. Mitchell leaned back. "Is that common?" "It happens sometimes," she replied calmly. "Misunderstandings." That word lingered in the air. Greg's jaw tightened. His confidence began to fracture under the weight of attention. This wasn't anger. This was control. As plates were set down, the tension remained. Greg barely touched his food. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his fork. "You've been with us a long time," Mitchell said smoothly. "And yet something as basic as compensation slips?" "Even strong systems have blind spots," the woman replied evenly. Greg stiffened. Whispers followed, not words, just reactions. Raised brows, tight smiles. Greg dropped his fork. The sound echoed louder than it should have. "Interesting," Mitchell said with a quiet chuckle. "Sometimes," the woman added calmly, "results speak long before recognition catches up." That was the moment Greg realized he was no longer in control of the story. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out hollow. He shifted in his seat, adjusting his jacket like armor that no longer fit. "Let's be clear," Mitchell said. "Was this bonus approved or not?" Greg hesitated. The woman waited. Seconds stretched. No one spoke. Then she repeated, softly but clearly, "What bonus?" The room froze again. Mitchell smiled, not unkindly but knowingly. The narrator explains that in corporate rooms, silence is louder than shouting. And tonight, silence was screaming. Greg's posture shrank. His authority thinned. Others at the table began to see what had been hidden for months, maybe years. When entrees arrived, no one ate. Greg stared at his plate like it might save him. "Has her work been properly recognized?" Mitchell asked. No one answered. "Not always," the woman said. "That was enough." Whispers moved faster now, loyalties recalculated in real time. "We'll look into it," Mitchell said calmly. Greg swallowed hard. The woman lifted her glass once more, composed. This dinner hadn't just exposed a missing bonus. It exposed a man who had taken credit and a woman who had been keeping records. And the night was only beginning. Friends, if this story is already pulling you in, take a second to like the video and subscribe. Stories like this only work when they're told all the way through. And trust me, what's coming next changes everything. The dinner ended without applause or speeches. People stood up slowly, conversations stiff and careful. Greg avoided eye contact as chairs scraped against the floor. He left early, claiming a headache. No one stopped him. The narrator explains that the next morning the office felt different, quieter. Emails arrived slower, people whispered instead of speaking openly. Power had shifted even if no one said it out loud. By noon, the woman was called into HR, not to reprimand her, but to clarify details. She answered every question calmly. Dates, projects, metrics, numbers she had memorized because she had lived them. That afternoon, Mitchell requested a private meeting. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He simply asked her to walk him through her contributions from the last 3 years. She did. Clearly, precisely, without emotion. System upgrades that reduced costs. Workflow redesigns that doubled output. Reports that others had signed their names to. Mitchell listened, took notes, asked careful questions. Then he asked the one question Greg had been avoiding for years. Why weren't you promoted? The room was silent. The narrator notes something important here. She didn't answer right away, not because she didn't know, but because she finally realized she didn't need to defend herself anymore. Because visibility was controlled, she said. Mitchell nodded once. Within a week, Greg's authority was quietly reduced. Meetings he once led were reassigned. Decisions required second approvals. The power drain was subtle, but unmistakable. Greg noticed he started stopping by her desk, asking questions he should have already known, complimenting her work too loudly, trying to rebuild a bridge he had burned plank by plank. But the narrator makes it clear this wasn't about revenge fueled by anger. This was patience paying off. Then came the audit. It wasn't announced, it wasn't dramatic, but it was thorough. Emails were reviewed, project histories traced, approval chains examined, and patterns emerged, credit rerouted, bonuses redirected, recognition delayed, strategically. By the time Greg was called into a closed-door meeting, the outcome was already decided. The narrator pauses here to say this: revenge doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it walks in quietly, carrying receipts. Greg left the building with a cardboard box and a fixed smile. Officially, it was a mutual separation. Unofficially, everyone understood. A week later, an email went out company-wide. The woman was promoted. Her new role reported directly to the executive team. At the next company dinner, Mitchell raised a glass. This time, he said, smiling, we made sure everything reached the right place. The narrator closes this part of the story with a reminder. When injustice thrives on silence, patience becomes power, and the real comeback? It wasn't the promotion. It was being seen, finally, unmistakably, and on her own terms. Stay with us until the end, because the final lesson behind this story might change how you move in every room from now on. Before we go further, welcome back to the channel. If you've ever felt overlooked, sidelined, or quietly erased at work, stay with this story. And if moments like this matter to you, tap like and subscribe, because what unfolds next is where quiet endurance turns into undeniable momentum. The narrator explains that promotion did not bring instant peace. Titles change faster than culture. Some colleagues smiled too quickly. Others avoided eye contact altogether. The office had not forgotten the imbalance. It was still learning how to live without it. In meetings, her voice was now expected. When she spoke, people listened. Not because of sympathy, not because of drama, but because results followed her words. Decisions she had once suggested in side emails were now implemented in real time. The systems she designed were no longer invisible. They were foundational. Yet the narrator makes one thing clear. The most difficult moment came weeks later, not in a boardroom, but alone at her desk. An email appeared from a junior analyst thanking her for showing what patience looks like. That message lingered longer than any applause. Leadership noticed something else too. Departments once competing began collaborating. Efficiency improved, morale shifted. It turned out recognition didn't just elevate one person, it corrected an entire structure. Then came the industry conference. Executives from rival firms gathered, panels formed, questions were asked. During one session, a competitor referenced a process now widely adopted across the field. Its origin was credited correctly this time. The narrator pauses here. Validation hits differently when it arrives without being chased. Later that evening, an executive approached her quietly. An offer was mentioned, not urgent, not aggressive, just respectful. Options expanded. She didn't accept immediately, because the lesson had already been learned. Power isn't proven by escape, it's proven by choice. Before we reach the final stretch, take a second to comment if this story feels familiar. Someone reading your words may need them more than you realize. In the months that followed, she documented everything, not out of fear, but out of clarity. Processes, decisions, credit trails, transparency became the culture. When she finally did move on, it was on her terms. Clean transitions, strong references, no burned bridges. The narrator closes with this. Revenge didn't look like destruction. It looked like alignment. It looked like truth surfacing without shouting. It looked like success that couldn't be reassigned. And the people who once doubted her, they still tell the story. Just not from the same position anymore. If this story stayed with you, share it. Subscribe for more stories where patience outlasts power and silence speaks the loudest in the end.